term that is actually mentioned, we have sphingolipids. When we say sphingolipid, it is one class of lipids containing a backbone of sphingon bases, a set of aliphatic amino alcohols that includes sphingosine. So that is actually a sphingolipids. What particular body part of your body that actually we can saw sphingolipids? Sphingolipids are found throughout the body, primarily located in our nerve cell membranes. They make up approximately 25% of lipids in myelin sheath. So that is actually another information for sphingolipids. Continuing, aside from that, one of the function of lipids is they have protected function in bacteria, plants, insects, and vertebrates, serving as a part of the outer coating between the body of the organism and the environments. Supposedly, it is actually the continuation or the result of the components, of the structural components provided by the lipids, which are the phospholipids, glycolipids, galactolipids, and sphingolipids. That is why it's very, it will give a protection function in many bacteria, in plants, insects, and vertebrates. Aside from that, it is served as a pigment. Okay, what do you mean by the word pigment? Another terminology that is actually to be take note. When you say pigment, it is actually a colored material that is completely or nearly insoluble in water. As I've mentioned a while ago, lipids is insoluble in water but can be soluble in a non-polar solvent. That will make lipid as a pigment because it is insoluble in water. It has a process of a colored material that is completely insoluble in water. What are those pigments? We have keratin, hormones, signal molecules like eicosanoids, phosphatidyllinositol, steroid hormone, cofactors. We have vitamin E, K, and lipid quinones, and detergent. That is actually basically the pigment, serve as a pigment of a lipid. So let's go now to the classification of lipids. Lipids are classified based on their chemical composition. One, it can be classified as a simple lipids or homolipids. Second, it can be classified as a compound lipids or heterolipids. And third, it can be classified into derived lipids. Let's discuss first the simple lipids or homolipids. When we say simple lipids, these are esters or of fatty acid with various alcohol. Okay, in our discussion we always mention the word esters. So what do you mean by the terminology ester? When we say ester, it is a chemical compound derived from an acid of organic or inorganic, in which at least one OH or hydroxyl group is replaced by alkyl group. Usually esters are derived from substitution reaction of our carboxylic acid and an alcohol. Okay, always remember that in the structure of ester, there is one hydroxyl group and replace it by an alkyl group that is actually an ester. So later part I will be giving you the structure of ester. Okay, second classification of lipids, we have compound lipids or heterolipids. When we say compound lipids, these are esters of fatty acid with alcohol and possess additional group also. Okay, if simple lipids only varies with alcohol, compound will actually add or possess another group. Okay, that will make us as a compound. As we all know, compound is a combination of two elements, combination of many elements. Okay, next one is derived lipids. When we say derived lipids, these are the substances derived from the simple and compound lipids by hydrolysis. Okay, Derived lipids is the combination of the simple lipids and the compound lipids upon the process of hydrolysis. When we say hydrolysis, this is a process in which the water will split, or the breaking down of water. So that is the process of hydrolysis. When the process hydrolysis is in the combination of simple and combined lipids, it will make, or the result of it is called derived lipids. Okay. For more discussion of it, let's take a look with the simple lipids. The simple lipids include fat, oils, and waxes. Remember that one, take note. The simple lipids include fats, oils, and waxes. These simple lipids are derivatives of lipid-like substances called fatty acid. Fatty acid are long-chain carboxylic acid. Okay, another, I've already mentioned it a while ago, carboxylic acid. What do you mean by carboxylic acid or carboxylic group? Carboxylic acid is actually an organic compound that contain carboxyl group. Okay. What do you think is the use of carboxylic acid? The use of carboxylic acid is a derivatives in the production of polymers or biopolymers. They also can be used as a solvent or a food and flavoring. So that is actually the use of carboxylic acid. It said also that generally the structure of fatty acid is greater than about 12 carbons. Take note with that have no solubility in water. Okay, that is why it said, I've mentioned a while ago again, that lipids is insoluble in water, but soluble in non-polar solvent. That makes up with fatty acid, kasi fatty acid have no solubility in water, or meaning it is insoluble in water, not soluble at all. Next to that, simple lipids is actually involve a hydrophilic with the group itself, or with the chemical structure COOH, or what do you mean by that structure? Or what do you mean by that functional group? When we say COOH, it is actually the chemical structure, or a structure of the carboxylic group. Carboxylic group is a functional group consisting carbonyl group, or has a structure C double bond, or carbon double bond of its double bond with oxygen. So that is actually the chemical formula of carboxyl group. We have COOH. It's referred to as a polar head, and the hydrophobic hydrocarbon portion is referred to non-polar pair. That is actually makes the lipids amphipathic, because it said that it is insoluble in water in a polar, and it is soluble in the non-polar solvent. Okay. Next to that, we have compound lipids. Compound lipids, there are fatty acid esterified with the alcohol, but addition they contain other groups. Depending on this extra group, they are subclassified as. Okay. In compound lipids is not by adding a compound, or adding a certain chemical compound. It is actually based or depending on the extra group they subclassified as. We have phospholipid containing phosphoric acid and non-phosphorylated lipids. So that are those additional group or extra group that can add to the compound lipids. Okay, so what do you mean by this non-phosphorylated lipids? Kasi phospholipid, we already know what is phospholipid. How about in phosphorylated lipids? Okay. Okay, in non-phosphorylated lipids, it is actually a glycolipids. A glycolipids are compound lipids containing a carbohydrate attached to lipid molecule by glycosidic bond. And this kind of lipids, or this kind of membranes, is actually a non-phosphorylated lipids. Okay, one of an example of non-phosphorylated lipids is a glycolipids. Always remember that one. Next to that, we have derived lipids. When we say derived lipids, these are the substances derived from simple and compound lipids by hydrolysis. I've already mentioned that one. By the process of splitting or breaking down of water, the combination of simple and compound will result as a derived lipids. Aside from that, this is also includes as a fatty acid, alcohols, monoglycerides, diglycerides, steroids, or and carotenoids. Okay, that is actually in the compounds or chemical compounds in a derived lipids. Okay, let's now focus or explain the process of fatty acid. As we all know, fatty acid are the simplest form of lipids. These are a monocarboxylic straight and branch hydrocarbon chain containing even number of carbon atoms between 4 to 36. Actually, this is actually pertaining to the structure or chemical structure of fatty acid. Fatty acid are also known as acyl group. Okay, what do you mean by acyl or acyl group? Okay. Okay. Acyl group can be defined as derived by the removal of one or more hydrogen group from an oxo acid, including inorganic acid. It contains a double-banded oxygen atom and an alkyl group. Okay, so that is actually a acyl group. In UPOS name, acyl group will name as alkanoil. It is derived from a carboxylic acid. Okay, always remember that one. That is why fatty acid is also known as acyl group when it is part of ester. Okay, fatty acid are amphipathic in nature. Okay, another thing when you say amphipathic, both soluble and insoluble. The fatty acid may be free or esterified with a glycerol to form triglyceride. Okay, there are types of fatty acid. We have saturated fatty acid, unsaturated fatty acid. And unsaturated fatty acid can be classified into two: monounsaturated and polyunsaturated. Okay, let's start on discussing first saturated acid. When we say saturated fatty acid, these are fatty acid that no double bonds in the chain or contain single chain. So later on, you can actually see the branch of the saturated acid. Their general formula is, you can actually see that one, where N is specified the number of methylene group between the methyl and carboxyl carbons. They have higher melting points, of course, in saturated fatty acid, and they are solid at room temperature. Examples of saturated fatty acid, we have uric, myristic, palmitic acid, and etc. When we say, what do you mean by this uric? Okay, uric is actually an example of saturated acid.